As many of you may be well aware of, yours truly, the Reverend Pat D, has been fucked over and treated like shit and discriminated against his whole life, including some uptight socks of shit control freaks who have deprived me of my basic right of freedom of speech. But at long last, I had a major breakthrough because I was able to get my own show in the 2013 Minnesota Fringe Festival called I Have Asperger's, What's Your Excuse? And here's what critics said about my show. Cody writes, just horrible. I can't believe I paid money to see someone complain, swear, and act very childlike. This is the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. I need to point out that I'm not a good speller, but the word believe is misspelled. He goes on to say, it's not any kind of story. He is bitching like a old lady. I'm not an expert on the proper use of the English language, but when a word is preceded by a vowel, you say and if the word is preceded by a consonant, you say a. So this gives me plenty of evidence that the person who wrote this is stuck up and stupid. It's also amazing how I went on to being childlike to bitching like a old lady. He goes on to say, don't waste your money, people. That is fucking amazing. I keep telling people not to waste their money by going to poetry slams, but they do it anyway. Someone who is one of the greatest spoken words artists in the entire world, such as myself, constantly ends up getting the lowest scores from the judges. While those who get the highest scores spout out a lot of pretentious stream of unconsciousness drivel, and people give them a high score not because they like it or understand it, actually they don't, but they think that because they pretend to like it and understand it, everyone will think that they are so deep, sensitive, and meaningful, when it's all a bunch of bullshit that makes no sense. Meanwhile, my spoken words is funny, refreshing, honest, entertaining, but so many people don't want to hear that. Most of the judges at these poetry slams have a stick up their ass and give me low scores, but I won't forget the time when I got lucky, and that's when I dressed up in drag, claiming that I had just had an abortion, and I was proud of it, and the judges gave me a very high score, and I was tied in first place. But one of the hosts, who can be an obnoxious asshole, and I went on to say, what's wrong with you judges? He's talking about murdering babies. And there was another time when I did a spoken words about how Satan causes your shit to stink, and one of the judges gave me a 0 on that one, while another judge gave me a 10. So that spoken words created a strong contrast from someone who's an extreme asshole to someone who's extremely cool. And meanwhile, that asshole went on to say, after hearing that, I don't want to ever take a shit again. While this woman in the audience yelled out and said, I do. And I found that to be fucking beautiful. When I did my spoken words called The Return of the Living Dead Fetuses, he went on to say, that made people feel uncomfortable. This asshole once said that his primary interest was to get drunk, so I addressed my case. Well, look at this repressive society of shit that we live in, where people are fucked over for saying what's on their mind being different. You gotta get drunk and wasted on drugs. I'd like to see my Return of the Living Dead Fetuses story get made into a movie, and it would make a great B movie, which would be about a Baptist minister who performs an exorcism after a girl has an abortion, and then he goes insane and he pulls down his pants and jerks off on the remains of an aborted fetus, and which causes all the aborted fetuses to come back from the dead, and they eat brains, and they like to eat the brains that taste like shit, so they eat the brains of pro-lifers because their brains taste like shit. Now, I got some other horrible reviews for my Fringe show as well. Veronica writes, I wanted there to be a point, but there wasn't. What a stupid, uptight, retarded fucking cunt. I invested $500 on my Fringe show, and I only got $169 back, so I lost money on this, which fucking sucks. I didn't spend all that money to do a show that didn't have a point to it. That is a matter of someone's opinions, and opinions are like assholes, and most of them stink, except for the ones that make sense. Now, someone else said that the emotions it provoked were pity and disgust and embarrassment. I don't want any fucking pity. Roger writes, Pat's presentation was an honest example of a stream of consciousness finding its own reality, connecting within itself, continuing a never-ending stream of consciousness, showing that Hercules was wrong and that you can step into the same stream twice. Pat was able to present a reality that he has to deal with while we can only glimpse a portion of the reality as it passes. His language and imagery was rough and challenging, but so is his reality that he shared with us. And I like a lot of what Roger said, but he only gave me 2 stars. And I will conclude by saying, mentioning that what someone said about my show who has their brain cells functioning. The Reverend Pat D is a known figure in the spoken word community for his profane rants on topics such as reincarnation, abortion, mental health, and diarrhea. Most open mics have time limits, so we've only heard small bits of Pat's unique worldwide view, and the pieces never seem to fit together. In contrast, this is true outsider art. Deeply vulnerable and fiercely proud of his alienation from society and commitment to crude material, Pat paints a vivid picture of life from behind his eyes with occasional departures from his script. His voice softens and we see Pat for the first time as a character in his own story, but not as a character of his own story, but as a human being, hilarious, offensive, raw, strongly charming, and absolutely captivating. And the name of my Fringe show said it all. I have, for those who don't like it, I have Asperger's. I like to know what their excuses. I tried for the Minnesota, the 2014 show, and I didn't make it. But I'm on the waiting list, and there's 57 people ahead of me. The show is called Satan Causes Your Shit Poop This Thing. And if the other 56 people ahead of me drop out, I'll get my show. But yeah, I hope it will. I hope they do.